Good morning, everybody. My name's Chris McCabe, and I was thinking, what kind of talk do I want to put together? And I threw out a few ideas in one of the WhatsApp groups, as you've probably seen there. And I've been in startups for about 10 years, and really that's where my expertise lies. Well, if you would call it expertise. I'm a fan of business. I heard this line on a podcast by John Foley, I think his name is. He's the founder of Peloton. And he used the line, I'm a fan, or I'm a student of business, it was. And what he means by that is, he listens to a lot of podcasts, he reads a lot of business books, and I thought, that sums me up. I've been in 2 different startups in 10 years. I've been developer, lead developer, maybe I should hold this, lead developer, CTO, and done pretty much all the roles from development right through to going to conferences and standing at stands. Just to get the plug out of the way, Johnny's sitting in the front row. I'm part of Newry Digital as well. We're trying to develop a software community in Newry. We do kata sessions where we do get everyone around the table, do TDD, Docker, kata, trying to develop everyone's skills right through the talks. The next talk is on Terraform and Ansible DevOps, Tuesday the 25th of June. Johnny's here if you have any questions on that subject.
I still have to finish the book.
He's still learning. Although I've been doing this for 10 years, there's hundreds if not thousands of books that you could actually read about product development in startups. And today I'm only going to cover the tip of the iceberg. Even in this talk, I have maybe 5 or 6 books that I'm going to reference, mixed in with my own experience. Hands up, who would love to exit a startup? Just me. We all have this dream of working in our flip-flops and our sandals and going into the office and sitting on a beanbag chair and dreaming of being the next Mark Zuckerberg. A lot of people follow that dream, but they start out with this overarching idea of maybe I should build a business around this. And when it comes to the actual details of what the business is actually going to do, it kind of escapes them. And that's why I put up this blank slide. Yes, it's pointing in a certain direction, but there's no details on where it's pointing to. I have often been told that I'm very negative when it comes to startups. And I recently fell out with my father. He's non-technical, but he's an avid fisherman. And he came to me one morning and goes, I have an idea that's going to make us millions. I'm sure everyone's had this conversation at some point in a pub or not. And he says, I go to a new town, I see a river. I don't know if a club owns that, if it's free to fish, or any details about it. Why don't you build an app that serves that purpose for me? And I thought, yeah, that's quite an interesting idea. But then when I goes, who's going to put all the information in this app? How many rivers are there in Ireland? How many lakes, lochs? And he's like, I don't know. You figure that bit out. You're the programmer. And he's like, that's not really how it works. And I found that not just in a conversation with my father, but also in the workplace, where people come in with these sweeping ideas. They haven't thought through who the users are, what the features are going to be, and if it's going to get any traction. The Lean Startup came out in 2011 by a book by Eric Ries. It's based on the Toyota production system. And he talks about the build, measure, learn loop. And really what he's trying to get at is any excess features or waste. And when he talks about lean startups, he doesn't mean sitting in your garage, not spending any money. He sees as any features that a user won't use or won't gain traction is waste. And when I think about startups, the first thing I think of is what I'm trying to learn. Because when we come up with a hypothesis for a startup, like, I don't know, I want an app that actually figures out if I can fish this, take a phone out, I'm standing beside a river, is this actually the right day to go fishing because of the weather patterns? Should I be at the beach because the tide's out at this time of the day? We can work back from what we're trying to learn through measuring what we're trying to achieve and building the product. In Lean Startup, I don't know if it's quite a popular book, so I assume someone's read it. He talks about validating an idea, where Dropbox is the classic example in the Lean Startup. They put up a video and it gained a lot of traction, and really it had no features, and just the traction of the video pushed them on to actually build the product. And there's other ideas where you can build a landing page for a website, put all the features in that you're going to build, and then collect email addresses, and that really is one way to validate what you're trying to learn. I was reading User Stories Applied at the time. It's a great book. Who's read it? Silence. It came out in 2004 and is a timeless book. And talks a lot about agile and development, and it was very relevant because a lot of the conversations that I have in startups is, what should we build? And it gives you a methodology of brainstorming the users, organising and consolidating the users, and refining the roles, and going on to the next stage where you come up with your user stories. And if we take the fishing idea, could anyone suggest a user for a fishing app? Maybe an angler, the wife of an angler, an angling club. Steve Blank also is a great author. He wrote the 4 Steps to Epiphany, and he also wrote the Startup Owner's Manual. And he tells us that there are no facts inside the building, so get the hell outside. With user role modeling, we can identify who our users are and who we need to talk to. The greatest startups are always ones that built to scratch your own itch. But I go fishing maybe once a year, once every 2 years since I got married, and I really try and identify who we're going to build the product for. The first step of user role modeling is brainstorming. Maybe you could split your anglers into 2 different sets, which would be course angling, game angling, sea angling. There's club committees. I follow a committee on Facebook who are always updating, trying to show off how great their committee or how great their club is with big, massive fish, and how well stocked the rivers are. So I've come up with a few suggestions. Novice fisherman, I would class myself in here. Fly fisherman, non-fishing gift buyer, the wife, fishing club member, fishing club president, and even down to the taxi driver. What are you going to do when you want to go fishing and you're actually stuck in the house? It's a beautiful day outside. The flies are coming onto the river out of the grass. Perfect opportunity, your car's broke. With brainstorming, there's no such thing as a bad idea. It's when you come to organise and consolidate. It's when you refine all the different roles in your application. I've grouped our anglers, so fly fisherman, sea angler, fishing club member, a novice fisherman. So really, they're going to be the users of our application. Non-fish gift buyer. Potentially our app could share the latest deals on new fishing tackle. We have a service user where a local tackle shop might want to advertise on our angling social network. Other services like a casting coach. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to cast a fly fishing rod. It usually ends up with a load of line at your feet and a sore arm. The next step with user role modeling is to refine the roles. So build up a picture of each user. I've defined angler, shopper, club committee member, service user. And when we start to build an app, these are the people we're going to have in mind. With Steve Blank, he would tell you to go out and talk to these people. If you're building for yourself, perfect. You know how you're going to define those roles and what kind of user you are. But if you don't have access to those people, it's also great to bring on that persona, and this is documented in that book. I know my dad, keen fisherman, goes fishing twice a week. He is very technical, proficient. He actually does read tidal patterns. He reads blogs about how different rivers are fishing. He follows different pages on Facebook. So if we built an app for him, we could make it quite complicated. But if it was for my grandfather, who was a great fisherman, he's never used a computer in his life, doesn't understand them, it would have to be quite simplified compared to something my father would use. And when we build up these different users, we think about all the technical proficiency, how well they know the actual domain. Are they a casual user? Like for myself, I go fishing, my dad hands me a rod, I cast out, hope for the best. Well, he studied for maybe 2 days before we actually go. And once we identify the users, the next step is summarized by Steve Jobs. It's really hard to get a user to actually explain what they actually want. You could build features into an application, and when you sit in front of the user, they'll go, this isn't what I actually talked about. And the quote by Steve Jobs, it's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of the times people don't know what they want until you show them. And user interviews are one way to solve that, but if you ask a user what features they want in an application, they have no concept of user role modeling. They don't know the two sides of an actual product. Think of eBay, there's buyers and sellers. There's Uber, you have Uber user and a driver. Conducting user interviews, you could identify what the problem's actual user is. So my dad gave quite a great explanation where he talked about, I want to know if I can fish that river. When I go to Dublin, I want to know where all the tackle shops are. My mum goes to shoe shops, he goes to tackle shops. And as a committee member of a fishing club, we want to grow our membership. We want to share the good stories of why you would want to join our fishing club. And one way to talk to the committee would be, can you show me how you currently do this? They use Facebook, which really, it's got a lot of users, but it's not purpose built. Can you show me what's frustrating about your current process? When my dad aggregates all this different information, he's bringing it from multiple sources. He just wants to open up an app and go, right, there's the river band, tell me what it is. As an angler, I want to locate on a map so I know what license or permit I need. That is the basic feature of the app that I would build. And once I stick that in front of my dad, he'll be able to go, yeah, can you expand that to the rest of the UK? I'd be like, maybe. And as a club committee, I want to promote my club's water so I have more resources for the clubs. I'm part of a club, and one of the biggest problems is resources. You could end up doing multiple roles, and having a club growth would be excellent. And this follows this kind of the agile storyboard. These are easily testable. So once you put the app in front of someone, you can go, right, as an angler, I want to locate a river on a map so that I know what license or permit I need. And that's easily proven. Going to move away from user role modeling and talk about false traction. I've been in different startups now. Pilots, MVPs, and POCs, proof of concepts, do not make for traction. As I said earlier, I tend to be quite negative. People come in and say, we're about to land this big client, and I'd be like, is the paperwork signed? MVPs, minimal viable products, aren't traction either. You can build a great feature set, but until your app starts breaking because it's got too much usage, that's not traction. Until your phone won't stop ringing because there's such a huge customer demand, that's not traction either. Selling to friends. I've worked on projects where we sold to sales guys' friends. What happens when you run out of friends? You can't make a great business out of it. Non-repeatable. I thought that was my time to get up. Non-repeatable customer experience. If you have one app, you have to customize for every customer. It's not a product-based business. It's a consultant business. And yes, people can make great businesses out of consulting, but it's not what I'm interested in. The other thing I wanted to talk about was tech stacks. We're at the NI DevConf here, and you'll hear about all the functional programming and different tech stacks that you could dream about. But a good tech stack, finally executed now, is better than a perfect tech stack next week. And one of the problems that I've had in the past is we tried to implement Kafka into a product. We weren't Java developers. We had no experience with Kafka. We had to bin Kafka in the end because it was taking up too much time. If you ask anybody who's an expert with Kafka, it would have been the perfect solution, but we didn't know it. Really, in a startup, when you're choosing technology, it should be what you know already. At the end of the day, a startup is about getting users, not about developing your skills. I always talk about there's two types of runway in a startup. There's a financial runway and there's the attention runway. Financial runway is you've got investment, it's going to run out in 6 months. That's quite easy to understand. But attention runway is where you got together with a group of friends, you're trying to develop a product. You hit a bump in the road, their attention starts getting distracted elsewhere. It's quite easy for a startup just to disappear because everyone has lost interest in the dream or the outcome that they're looking for. Even when you are sitting on your own trying to develop something, it's hard to keep motivation for a startup. I threw in all kind of what I thought would be hipster kind of program stacks. Rust has been mentioned already today. I had a friend recently say to me, you've got to learn Haskell and make you a better programmer. I think I'm doing all right, but this is where you can get sidetracked into actually developing your skills rather than developing the product and developing your actual user base. I'm going to finish on a slide where I've got a couple of books for recommendation. Traction is a book by the guy who started DuckDuckGo, which is a competitor to Google. And really it talks about the actual traction of a startup. Instead of spending all your time on developing product, he says that you should spend 50% on traction. He's developed a framework for actually gaining traction, which is called the Bullseye framework. It goes through around 19 different channels that you can use to gain traction for your startup. Obviously Ben Horowitz, part of Andreessen Horowitz, Hard Things About Doing Hard Things. It's a great book and gives you a very realistic overview of what startups is and what the media doesn't portray, or you might actually have to sack a friend or take someone off your board. Lost and Founder, Rand Fishkin was the founder of SEO Moz. Again, another very realistic book on life of a startup. And Hello Startup, I actually took this quote from it. It gives you a great overview. If you're a programmer with no business experience, it gives you a very realistic idea of how startups should process different things like product development, choosing your tech stack, and moving into the business realms. And that's me. If you want to, I'll take a few questions, but you can always email me. Okay. No questions? Everyone understood everything?
Say you're in a startup and you've got a number of different sort of teams in it, like sales and marketing and tech. Who ultimately decides what the next big feature release is or the priority of tasks?
In the user road modeling, salespeople are often proxies to what your actual users are. So if you sit down and get your developers in a room and your salespeople, ideally your customer, but you don't always have that opportunity, sit them in and go through that brainstorming exercise where you think about the users. A lot of the time salespeople just want to get sales done rather than thinking about product. And I've seen people sell anything like that the product will never do, and you're like, yeah, this is a bad business decision. If you involve the salespeople as proxies or users, that's when you'll actually. A lot of startups is about getting the team working in the same direction. Jim Collins, famous author, Good to Great, he talks about the analogy of the bus. You want the right people in the right seats in the bus moving in the right direction. And involving everyone. If you're only a team of like less than 10 people or even 20 people, there's no reason why you can't make these decisions collaboratively together.
Be interested in the Kafka story.
Non-technical questions, please.
No, I'm just wondering what alternative or what was the alternatives?
We pulled it. We were using Postgres, and we wanted to move towards a Bastion kind of bus, and we just pulled it. The company's still using Postgres.
Yeah. So the lesson for me there is like you don't have to waste your time on trying to do the cool thing when there's something that will do the job just as well. But you could refine it in the future. The
decision there was that when we're further down the road and we have more resources, we'll revisit rather than try and put in the perfect tech stack now. Any other questions?
So say you've got a feature or a factor whole startup and it came to the end almost. How do you know when to kill it? Like in fact, if it's the business, have you ever had an experience of that where it's outside time?
If you've raised money, the investors will tell you. But one of the startups I left was, it just got folded into another company. Everyone kind of went off in their separate ways, and everyone knew at that stage. We're only at 7 people, I think, or 8 people, and people started getting new jobs, and it kills morale as well. A lot about startups is about morale and keeping the team motivated rather than any technical issues. I think in some startups, like I left a startup there. I'm not actually in a startup at the moment, I'm just contracting. It's probably read in my WhatsApp there. But I left and was in a new job in a week, and the market's quite good for developers at this stage, so it's hard to, you're trying to paint this beautiful picture of how easy startups are, but realistically you're fighting with like all the big people coming into Belfast and Dublin to retain talent, and it's not just technical talent, sales talent is hard to come by as well. So I think everyone kind of knows at the end of the day when a startup, if you're actually working on it full time, if you're doing it part time, it's probably a different story. But if you read the Lean Startup, if you're not getting traction, it talks about pivoting and the whole process of that as well. So if you can't, after a year or two, get customers for one idea, maybe that's a realistic time to pivot to something else. Like at the end of the day, Slack was a pivot. They started out as a game, massive multi-online player game, and they ended up doing a glorified IRC channel thing. So, Joe.
There's a question on the sort of experience you get into the startup. Generally, from your experience, Chris, did you generally have like very senior engineers getting in, or was it junior engineers or mix, or how did that work?
Juniors and placement students, and that's probably a detrimental effect of having no money. If you raise less than $1 million, that money will disappear very quickly if you start hiring senior people. And trying to train people up, like I worked in First Derivatives for a while, and they just take people straight out of university and send them to projects when really they have no experience. You're trying to deliver product value as quickly as possible, and you can do that very quickly with just a web app, and you can really prove. There's another book by Reid Hoffman, the Blitzscaling book, and he talks about 2 different types of business, where it's a startup or it's a scale up. And what I'm talking about here is just proving product market fit, getting a bit of traction, and then transitioning into a scale up. If you're at that stage, you're going to get financing, and someone's going to throw money at you to hire more people because you're on to a winner at that stage.
Where's the best investment for startups?
You're talking the wrong person.
That's all the time for questions.
I'll be about afterwards.